Alright, hi everyone. Today our group is going to be talking to you about the OSI model, more specifically the presentation and session layers of the model. But before we dive into that, let me give you a brief history of the OSI model. The OSI model originated in 1977 by a team led by Mike Capnia, where they worked to create something to aid in the communication structure for databases and distributed database applications. What resulted was a 7-layer structure called Distributed System Architecture, or DSA. Not too long after, the British Standards Institute inquired about a standard to define infrastructure for distributed computing. It was here that Capnia's DSA was accepted with a minor refinement in June of 1979 as a standard. So now that you know the history behind the model, let me just give you a little bit of an analogy so you can kind of start to see how these all work together. So say a king from one nation wants to deliver a message to a king of another nation. The king will talk to their lawyer, where they translate their common speak into legal jargon. So in this sense, the king is the application layer and the lawyer is the presentation layer. The lawyer then passes the message to the secretary, who alerts the secretary of the other kingdom that a message is coming. The secretary is the session layer. The secretary then passes the message to a postal manager, who decides kind of how the message will be transported, whether it be through FedEx or UPS or something of the sorts. The postal manager is the transport layer. Once the postal manager makes this decision, they pass it along to the shipping services dispatcher, which is the network layer. This dispatcher kind of holds all the packages until they're ready to be picked up by, say, a driver, or in this case, a sailor, and the driver and sailors are the link layer. Then the driver or sailor carries the message across a road, or in this case a sea, which is the physical layer. And once it reaches the other side, the message travels all the way back up and gets to the king.
I looked at the session layer, which is the 5th layer of the OSI model. It is located above the transport layer and below the presentation layer. It's used to track connections to remote servers, and this layer is also where sessions are set up, managed, as well as torn down. There are 4 key utilities to this layer: dialogue management, synchronization, activity management, and exception handling. Dialogue management pretty much decides which application can talk at each time, and also when using ISO protocols, there is a thing called a token that is used, which will only allow you to transmit data once the token is processed. Synchronization moves entities into a known state. It also deals with errors in the upper layers, such as the presentation layer, the application layer, the physical layer. And it also uses sequence numbers. Sequence numbers are used when the application is not running. You can resynchronize to the last sequence number that was used. Activity management is used for exchanging messages, and exception handling is used to report errors. There are many protocols that are used with this layer. RPC, Remote Procedure Call, is the main protocol that is used. It's a service that allows programs from one server to use programs on another, instead of them having to send and receive messages back and forth to one another. This protocol also allows different streams to connect and be synchronized. It calls for web conferencing, live television, and also online streaming.
Talk about the presentation layer real quick. It's the 6th layer of the OSI model, located directly beneath the application layer and above the session layer. It's responsible for displaying or presenting the data of the application layer of both hosts. This is important when remembering that 2 hosts may not be running the same operating system, so different operating systems have different ways of saving data, whether it be a Word document, audio file, or a multimedia file. So basically the presentation layer is in charge of making sure both formats match between the sender and the receiver. There's 3 functions that help to carry this out. The first one being translation, or the process of converting data files into a compatible format the application layer can interpret, as well as the remaining layers below it. An important protocol of this is the multipurpose internet mail extensions. This works with the application layer protocol SMTP to make sure that the format of these emails matches between both the sender and the receiver. A second function of the presentation layer is compression. This is the process of reducing the size of the bits by either deleting redundant information in the code or by removing unnecessary information. This helps increase throughput when sending a message, and it also reduces the costs between each node. And the third and final function of the presentation layer is encryption. This is the process of scrambling the text that is transmitted over the network in a way that only the sender and the receiver can view the message. And a protocol that does this is the secure sockets layer. This works with different websites, like for instance, if you look in your browser, the HTTPS websites use the SSL protocol. A few examples of those would be Amazon, Penn State Angel, and online banks. And basically SSL just encrypts the data that is sent between sender and receiver.
I'll be discussing security concerns within the presentation layer and the session layer. The presentation layer transforms a file into code such as binary or Unicode. The Unicode presents vulnerabilities, but Windows released a patch for this. You can secure the presentation layer by using an SSL, the Internet Protocol Security, a virtual private network, or authentication. As far as the session layer goes, the major security concern is the TCP session hijacking, which is when an attacker takes over a TCP connection in between two users. An example of this would be a man-in-the-middle attack. There's 5 ways to secure a session layer: SSL, Secure Shell, Kerberos, IPsec, and authentication.
Alright, so that brings us to the close of our presentation. We hope that this has given you a better understanding of not just the 5 layers that we learned in class, but all 7 layers. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.